Hello, everybody. Welcome to Journals of Journey. We have another episode here with somebody that is very interesting that we want to talk to him about. And also, it's going to be a big subject, especially now with so much technology roaming around the world, so much information going through. And, what he specializes in is so important to each and everyone because we all have a device. We all have cell phones. We all have
hmm
different technology that we use every single day. And we try to focus on, we understand the usage of saying, giving people a call, downloading different kind of financial stuff. We put our information into there, but
hmm
at the end of the day, who's really taking care of it for us? Who's really taking care of the security side of it? And so we have Christian Khang here. Thanks for coming on, Christian.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I have a lot of question, and like I was telling so I'm like, man, you know what? I'm gonna ask questions that are so kind of weird and outside of the world and things like that. See if it's weird enough. Because I mean, with how the world is going on, there's always something new, always
hmm
something new. And so, but first, before we really get into what you do and things like that, I kind of want to know, or kind of want you to tell people what, you do and in your personal life and, how you really got into this kind of career.
Yeah, so my name is Christian Khang. Currently, I'm a senior cybersecurity engineer working for a company called Brightspeed. Before that, I was working in the utility energy sector, so defending like nuclear utilities, solar. They also had gas facilities. So, pretty much one of the largest energy companies in the U.S. Um, my background is that I have a very helpful degree in psychology, which I don't use, but I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill, wonderful school. Still love it. Um, I'm doing a couple other things on the side. So my full time job is as a senior cybersecurity engineer. I'm also a master firearms instructor, and so I've got a firearms training business, and that's called Mountain Tribe Development. So we do a lot of firearm safety classes, self-defense classes, concealed carry classes. Those are the things that we focus on, and we're really focused on. A lot of guys like to do like the very like high speed tactical stuff, like Navy SEAL, SWAT team stuff. We focus on teaching regular people real world self defense, and that's what our focus is. Also, I do a couple other things. I've got another business where during the weekdays, I teach cybersecurity engineering classes. And so those classes are geared for people who are looking for a career change. Cybersecurity field is a hard one to break into. You guys have probably seen advertisements for like cybersecurity boot camps and
Yeah.
college courses and stuff. And those really didn't exist when I started. So I started in about like 2015. Um, and at that time, you couldn't go to a school. There weren't any boot camps. There weren't any university courses. Those didn't really come about until a couple of years after that. I want to say like maybe like 2018, 2019. That's when we started seeing those really start to come up. And even in that field, I'm in a lot of different like IT groups, and so you've got a lot of young people who say, "Hey, I'm trying to break into the cybersecurity field. How do I do it?" And it's that catch 22 where you need experience to get a job, but that you need a job to get experience, and that's what a lot of people are finding. So with our cybersecurity training program, what sets it apart is that we've got our own company, and so the students they work with us, they train with us, and so they get experience under our company while they're studying and while they're working with a lot of hands-on stuff. And then third thing is that I also have rental properties too. So I do property and I'm fixing sinks, replacing toilets. I've got a leaky pipe that I've got to go fix later on this week. So I stay pretty busy. I'm married, I have one son, but somehow I managed to find time for everybody.
And it's
That's
everything
awesome.
then. We talked about business. I mean, you're a lot of people when they take the step into the business area, it's mostly only one, or maybe it might be two, but I mean taking three, four, five like you are, that's a whole different ball game. And so but I mean with with how does your wife take about, you taking on all this stuff? How does the schedule look like?
Um, schedule's pretty busy, not gonna lie. So still working a full-time day job. So that's your regular 8 to 5. The nice thing is that being in cybersecurity, it's one of those fields where there's more opportunities for remote work. So I work 100% remotely, so I don't have to commute into the office, which makes my life a lot easier. That allows me to have a little bit more time to spend with my family and also work on my other side projects. Um, and it's just, I think I mentioned to you before, it comes down to scheduling, just being able to kind of schedule everything and knowing how to allocate that time. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a difficult time scheduling. Like we talked about scheduling my wife into my schedule. Into
Wives
there.
always love that.
I
Wives
know,
always love that.
and they're like, I feel like I'm a client to you someday, and someday I feel like someday is good, but someday it's like, oh, I have to wait on you. But I think it's all part of the process. And so, but when you with your, how old is your son?
He just turned 4. Yeah, he's
Oh
getting big.
wow.
Mhm.
Oh wow, man. So he's like learning the process and it's like, okay, well, this is going on and things like that.
Mhm.
I have a 3-year-old son and he's always like, man, I feel like you're never home, but I feel like sometimes you're home too long. And so so those things. Yeah, it gets those. But and then with when before you getting into these kind of the field of the cybersecurity and doing all those business, did you ever think you would actually start something like that, like start a business in any of those?
Um, you know what? Just kind of growing up, my mom was always like, you got to be your own boss. You got to do your own thing. And when you're younger, you don't really take that to heart. You're always like, okay, well, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to university, get a degree, get a good job. But then once you've kind of done that, you realize that, man, you're slaving away. You're putting in all these hours, and you're not you're not like making your life better. You're making the company better. You're increasing productivity for somebody else, right? And so I one of the things that you kind of learn is that when you're younger, I tried doing a lot of small things. I tried doing like different projects to kind of make money. Like I would make like little toys and things like that and try to sell those. I would try to make stickers and stuff. And I could never really could make much money off of that. But then as I got older and I had more capital, I was able to invest in things. It's much easier to make money. And it's a snowball effect, right? There's always that saying that, the rich get richer, but when you start having money, you start realizing that, hey, it's easy to take this money and then to reinvest it, and then it snowballs on top of itself, right? So that's kind of what I've been seeing is that as I'm able to kind of build these different businesses, I have more capital that I can get better tools, I can get better services, better equipment, and then it makes it a lot easier for me to do more things and be more productive with it. And so it's tough when you're at the bottom. When you're at the bottom, you've got to grind harder, you got to work harder. But once you kind of build it up a little bit, that snowball effect kicks in.
Nice. Christian, you said that you have a degree in psychology. At what point in your life did you veer off from that and went into cybersecurity?
The point where I graduated and I realized that you can do nothing with a bachelor's in psychology.
Right.
I graduated and I was working. I was working a couple different jobs. I was working in a warehouse. I worked at Home Depot for a bit, and then after that, I was working at a call center, and life sucked. And so one of my cousins, she told me about a network engineering program in Minnesota. And so I went up to Minnesota. I took that program, and I met my wife in Minnesota. So that was a very nice bonus. But that's kind of what helped me get into this field is learning that networking. And then I think I mentioned before around like 2015, 2016, there weren't programs for cybersecurity. So at that time, companies, they were really desperate for people to get into cybersecurity programs. And so you even at that time, you don't really see the kind of that old timey idea of you would be able to graduate from school and then a company would hire you and company would train you. And then a lot of people, they would stay with the company until retirement. You don't really see that anymore. And that's so it was kind of interesting for me for when I finished that I had that networking background. And so a company was willing to hire me and to teach me cybersecurity, which was adjacent, but not really exactly what I had experience in. So Having that open up for me, that definitely opened up a lot of doors. And so I was able to use that experience, and I was able to. One of my really good friends, he went up to Minnesota with me, and so we started this company together. So he has more network engineering experience, I have more cybersecurity experience, and just using that, we kind of developed our own program so that way we could teach people from the absolute bottom all the way out into a decent cybersecurity job.
That's nice. Is for someone or for our viewers who may not know what cybersecurity entails, can you just give like a very simple explanation, or maybe just like what to expect if you're in that field and what you guys do?
Definitely. So in the cybersecurity field, essentially the whole world revolves around the internet nowadays. If you don't have a smartphone, you can't really do much. It's hard to apply for a job. It's hard to get a driver's license. It's hard to do anything if you don't have a smartphone, right? And so, just being everything connected to the internet, it's very easy to exploit things connected to the internet. It's easy to exploit computers, easy to exploit people, easy to exploit smartphones. And so in the cybersecurity field, what our job is that essentially, if you could imagine a ship, right? And of all those pieces of and of all those pieces of wood that makes up that ship, you've got to make sure that everything is watertight, right? But the problem is that the bigger and bigger and bigger you make a wooden ship, there's more and more pieces of wood, right? So there's always going to be small little areas in that ship where water is going to kind of leak through. Okay. And essentially, as a cybersecurity engineer, your job is you've got to patch up all those little holes all across the ship, right? You're not going to get all of them. Okay, you're not going to get every single hole because the ship's just way too big, but you're going to do your best to get the really big stuff, and then try to work under the small stuff as you can. And then the problem is that the ship is not just one ship; the ship is growing and growing and growing, and so the areas that you need to go plug the holes, those increase too. So that's kind of a metaphor for how cybersecurity works.
I like that. Thank you for that explanation.
With the cybersecurity, when I look at cybersecurity, I always think about like maybe it's for them just to protect software and anything data in those areas. But I realized that cybersecurity is probably more than that. Because whenever people say, hey, you know what, I want to get into the IT world or the IT, they talk about is it informational technology. So IT stands for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, they talk about that, and then you learn more about that, and IT is just a general thing of saying, it's like the IT is the umbrella, and then anything else under the IT is what category you kind of go to. And so I'm like, man, there's so much, but individual specializes in individual things under the umbrella. And so when we look at it, we're like, oh, okay, well, that guy, he's a data management guy. He doesn't do that cybersecurity. And so I have buddies in mine, and I said, well, don't you do cybersecurity too? They're like, oh, cybersecurity is on a whole new level that you kind of have to dig into. What we do is we do data management, and data management, we hold data and all those things. But I guess the point is that when we were talking about cybersecurity, and when I was doing my research into cybersecurity, it was, I gotta say, I do a lot of research, and cybersecurity, I was researching, and it feels like it's going down a rabbit hole. Like it continues to go and go and go. It never ends. And about the amount of people that use the cybersecurity in there as, information will get you far in there. But with your knowledge of cybersecurity and what you do you feel like most people are tapping into that area to use it for good, or is it for bad, or is there more of saying, oh, you know what, cybersecurity is just there and there's nothing else more on that part?
I would say that generally most people are not cybersecurity aware. Okay. And that's kind of a problem because if we're talking about that ship analogy, if you're not hiring people to plug those holes, then your ship's going to start taking on water. Right? So, for example, IoT, Internet of Things. And the idea is that you have a smart house, a smart speaker, a smart fridge, and all these smart devices all throughout your house, right? People have wireless light bulbs, wireless plugs and switches, right? And these things are vulnerable. Okay. For example, there was a doll that was released, a children's toy, and it was a doll and had a camera built in, right? So your child could take that toy and they could record video, they could take pictures with it, right? It was also wireless, meaning that somebody could find the wireless signal of it and they could get into it and they could remotely view it. They could take the data off of it and essentially control the doll and look through the doll, right? Whatever your child is doing, wherever it is in the room, right? And so when people make stuff, right? When people make dolls, when people make smart fridges, a lot of times they're not cybersecurity aware. Okay, that's not even a thought for them. Why would anybody break into my fridge? Why would anybody break into a child's toy, right? And it's not necessarily that you could make money doing that, but it's exploitable. Okay, and a lot of people, a lot of bad guys, will exploit things for fun. Okay, and so generally, the general population, they're not really cyber aware. You guys have probably seen in your email inbox right now, there's probably a couple Nigerian princes who are offering you money, but you just need to send them like $1,000 or something, and then they'll send you like $1 million from Nigeria, right? So those are very common scams, and a lot of cybersecurity that we're seeing today is it's easier to attack people than it is to attack devices. As companies, they hire good engineers, and those engineers are plugging those holes. It's not like when you watch the movies, right? In the movies, the hacker, he type. Okay, I broke into the CIA, I broke into the police department or the federal government. It's not that easy. Okay, if it was that easy, we'd be in very big trouble, right? So what these criminals are doing, we call them threat actors. What threat actors are doing is instead you attack people. Okay. And so what you'll do is you'll send somebody an email, right? A lot of people are familiar with phishing emails where you'll get an email saying, hey, download this invoice. You need to pay this invoice right now, or it's going to go to collection. It's going to affect your credit. And so people are like, oh, I got to pay the invoice. So they'll open the file. The file contains a virus, and then it will lock your computer. It will steal all the information on your computer. The elderly people are very susceptible to this because they didn't grow up in a world with the internet, right? So somebody calls and says, hey, I'm from Microsoft support. You have a virus on your computer. You need to pay me $500 right now. Or especially on tax season, you guys are probably familiar with all the tax scams.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
so that's,
yes.
And so all of those, a lot of those are whole companies based in like India and Pakistan, where they have whole call centers dedicated just to those scams, right? And so these are professional organizations. They have shifts, they have floor managers, they have training videos, as professional as any other business. Being a threat actor, being a cyber criminal, that's its own professional category as well. So, so I would say that the biggest thing is when you're learning cybersecurity is just kind of being aware of things, how the world works, and be a little bit paranoid of what you see on the internet. If things are too good to be true, be cautious of it.
I like that. I like that word paranoid. I always use that word, even in finance. We said that if you're not paranoid enough, then you're not using the precautions that you need, especially when you talk about financial and data and sensitive information. And the nice thing is, I was doing when I was going through looking at some cybersecurity stuff, I was reading about this company. It's called, I think, Sun Finance or Sunrise Finance or something like that. It's a financial service company, and it actually got hacked. And this was recent. I mean, I want to say maybe about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. And the company got hacked, and all these information, Social Security got out, and and these companies were big companies in the financial. And when I think about it, I'm like, man, you know what? If these big corporation can get hacked this easily, taking millions of money, information into there, basically maybe to sell it off or however they do, then how easy would it be for an individual like us, people that aren't savvy at computers and those kind of areas to for somebody just to pass by and take everything else, you know? And so that's why when I think about, man, these big finances and people taking those information, I know that, I think I'm not sure how familiar you are with the hack world, but when you talk about cybersecurity, do they give you guys maybe like a 101 on how individuals would take those bigger corporations? Is it because somebody messed up in there? Is it because that one person messed up in that big company?
That
That's
one hole
why.
wasn't plugged.
Yeah, is it because of that and that's why there's a leak that came through? Or is it because, the system that is not being updated or not followed? But what do you think on that?
Yeah. So if you can imagine a company as like as we were talking about before, that metaphor of a giant wooden ship, right? And if that's the company, then an individual, you're a small rowboat, right? And if you're a small rowboat, it's very easy to look around. Are there any holes? Are there any holes? And you can kind of plug them, right? Whereas if you've got a massive ship, it's much more difficult, right? And as the saying goes, a chain is only as strong as the weakest link, and that's typically what we see with corporations. With corporations, it's not that you can't do the whole hacker thing and melt through firewalls. That's not how it works for a decent organization. But there's more targets. There are more people to target. Okay, um, a lot of your like C-suite executives, right? A lot of them are not super tech savvy, so it's very easy to send them, say, "Hey, director of finance, here's this email that comes in and says, hey, your credit card's been stolen. We need you to click on this, and we need you to fill out this information so that way you're not charged $50,000." Right? It's very easy to trick people like that. Even if your executives who you need to be training in cybersecurity because they are primary targets, you can trick their staff, you can trick their assistants. For example, there was a company called LastPass. LastPass is a password management software company, and so literally you should be using unique passwords for every account that you have. That's a very easy way to break into your accounts because people are lazy, and so they use the same password for all their accounts. And so let's say that you went to one web store to buy, let's say, like fishing poles, right? Does that one web store really have good cybersecurity practice? They probably don't, right? And so instead of me attacking your Gmail account, attacking your Amazon account, I can attack that fishing store. I can get the whole user database and I can get their passwords, and then I can use that to log into all of your other accounts, right? That's typically what we see. It's very easy to do that. So we can combat that with things like multi-factor authentication. We can combat that with using different passwords on all of your accounts. But okay, cybersecurity is a huge hole. So I'm trying not to get off topic. So the idea is that you got a large ship, right? You got your large ship. And so it comes down to all the individual pieces of that ship, right? And so instead of if you target the right person, like with a company LastPass, which is a password management company, and so what hackers did is they targeted an engineer, right? And so they targeted one of the engineers, and turned out that the engineer, he was saving company pretty much his login information and other company information on his home computer. And so they targeted his home computer, they got it there, and they used that to compromise the whole password database for the whole company. Okay.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so it's at an individual level, it's easier because you're only in charge of your information. And if you're a pirate, there's going to be more gold in a giant ship than there is going to be in a rowboat, right? And so since you are the rowboat as an individual, you're not necessarily going to have tons of people going after you because you're not that interesting and you probably don't have that much money, right? So you're going to see more of a blanket attack where you're going to get those phishing emails. You're going to get those phone calls from Microsoft or the IRS, right? And that's how they're going to get you with more broad attacks. Whereas when we look at corporate level stuff, that's when we talk about spear phishing. Okay, if a phishing attack is where you send the whole company emails, spear phishing is when I craft an email specifically to Director John Smith, right? And I know information about him that I got from his LinkedIn profile, right? And I target an email to him, knowing his accounts, following his social media, right? Let's say that next week he's going to be in the Bahamas, right? I send him an email saying, hey, this is the hotel from the Bahamas. Your reservation has been declined. Please click here to update your reservation information. That's what we call spear phishing, where we purposefully target select individuals. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, it definitely does. I think and it's crazy how I feel like it's more of, I mean, definitely a lot of work for the individual that is going after higher executives than them. And that's why when you said that, it reminds me of myself, to be honest, because as you know, I had a background of law enforcement, and whenever we do our investigation, we're going through that, time, detail, what time
Yeah.
they check into work, what time they're leaving, what they're doing afterwards. And it's a lot of time consuming, but I can see somebody maybe somebody with a higher net worth
Mm.
and somebody else waiting on that, being patient until the time is right to really hit that mark. But that's really scary though. You think about when most people say, it isn't a battle that you can have like back in the 1800s or the 1900s you know, when you start a war and a bunch of people get together, line up and fight that war. It's more of, okay, well, you know what? We'll send out 100 people and another 100 people, and the rest of it, they'll just fight into the cyber war, and that's how we'll win. And that's why when we look into the cybersecurity, I mean, with based on your experience, do you ever think about, okay, well, what level of paranoia do I need to have for my personal life and in my family after knowing all this? How high of a level of security am I putting our family in?
Yeah, and maybe paranoia is not the right word for me to use. It's more of skepticism, right? Be skeptical of phone calls, be skeptical of emails, and even from your own friends and family, right? So a lot of you guys are probably familiar on social media. Your friend will start posting, "Hey guys, this company is giving away free money." I just dealt with this like 2 days ago, right? So one of my
Yes.
Facebook friends, yeah, one of my Facebook friends, this lady that I've known for a long time, she's like, "Hey, this company's giving away money. Just comment here, or what's the number on this?" Nobody has been able to see the number on this picture, right? And then you message me, and then that's how they get you, right? Cybersecurity at a personal level, there's a whole long list that I could spend like a whole hour lecture on personal cybersecurity. It comes down to a couple basic things. Number one, like I told you, be skeptical. Okay, if something's too good to be true, then it's probably not, right? If your Facebook friend is giving away free money from some organization, no, right? If somebody in an email says, "Hey, I'm a Nigerian prince," right? Just a lot of skepticism. A bit of skepticism goes a long way. Okay. The other thing is understanding the current threat landscape. And so, as I mentioned before, things that you can do to protect your family is using multi factor authentication. Okay. And so, what that means is that when you log into an account, you should have a way to have a secondary authentication, meaning that you know the password and that a lot of times you can get a code sent to your phone, and that will be a secondary authentication method. Okay. Do that because if somebody gets your password, then they wouldn't be able to get into the account unless they have your phone, right? Now, if you're into cryptocurrency, okay, phone authentication kind of sucks. If we're talking about email I'm sorry, if we're talking about phone authentication via phone number, it's a very common thing now. It's called SIM swapping. Okay, so a lot of guys they'll do multi-factor authentication with like with their cryptocurrency accounts. And so what you do is you find the big people, right? Because if we're talking about the blockchain, you can see who on the blockchain has a lot of money, right? And so if you eventually figure out who's got big wallets, what you can do is if you can figure out their password, right? You can figure out their password by checking databases of stolen passwords to see if they're reusing a password. And if they're reusing a password, you've got that. But then the second part is you need to get that text message authentication. And so what they'll do is they'll get a gang of guys together, right? And they will run into the T-Mobile store, or they'll run to like a lot of the cell phone provider stores. You can A lot of times they'll have small computers, right, where you can register new SIM cards. They will just steal that. Once they steal that, they have about 3 to 5 minutes before that device is deactivated, right? So they got a whole chat going on. So they get orders, right? So they say, all right, guys, we're going to break into T-Mobile. If you want me to SIM swap you $5,000, and then we'll get them queued up, right? So they get a whole queue of numbers that they got a SIM swap. Okay, so they'll steal the information. Well, they'll steal the hardware, and then they've got like 3 minutes to swap as many of those as possible. Okay, if your phone stops working for some reason, you cannot make or receive calls, you need to figure out really quickly why. Okay, you may have been SIM swapped, right? Somebody may have stolen your phone number. So what they're doing is they're porting that phone number to a new phone, and they're using that to get that secondary authentication piece. And so a ton of people lost their crypto wallets, and hundreds of millions of dollars have been stolen using SIM swapping. So yeah, so that's why the phone number itself is not considered, it's not considered a great way to secure your accounts. If you're not a big fish with a massive crypto wallet, you're not really necessarily going to be a target of SIM swapping. But if you got important stuff, I wouldn't use that. You can do other types of authentication, like Microsoft has an authenticator app, Google has an authenticator app, I believe Apple has one as well. I would use that instead. So I have a lot of stories, so I try not to get sidetracked. Because these are really interesting stories, and then my students will just sit there and they'll listen to my stories, and then I realize I spent like an hour talking about things that are slightly off topic but still on topic. Okay, so be skeptical. Use unique passwords. Use a password manager. Use multi-factor authentication. And the other thing is have a plan as well. Have a plan. It goes a long way, right? Because you guys talk about like a lot of financial planning, right? Preparing for the future. You know, what could happen in the future? You know, what are my backup plans? So if I lose my job, or, you know, if I die, or if my spouse dies, you know, do you have life insurance and stuff? And you can have smaller plans too. And by that, what I mean is even most people don't even have a fire escape plan. You know, if the house is on fire, what are you going to do? Right? I have a bunch of fire extinguishers in my house, and I have a fire escape ladder. So if the downstairs is on fire, we just pop a fire escape ladder and we just go out the window. Okay. What do you do if you walk into your house and someone has broken in and you realize it, right? My family, we have a safe word, right? If we say that safe word, it means something's not right. Let's get out, right? And yeah, so that's have a plan. That goes more into like personal security, but in terms of cybersecurity, by planning ahead, mostly means just following these good practices, by prepping your security ahead of time, by using unique passwords, using multi-factor authentication, by being skeptical. These are just some of the basics that'll really help protect you, keep you safe.
Christian, I'm just curious, with everything you know, with cybersecurity, I know that there's a lot of people who want the smart home and they want that technology. Even new homes are being built smart now. I just want to know, what is your personal take on that? Like, should people be concerned? And also in terms of having social media, do you personally use social media? And are there any precautions that you're taking that maybe the average consumer may not know about?
Yeah. No, that's an excellent question. So, social media is a great place for OSINT, OSINT, open source intelligence, right? So I was talking before about how if an executive is planning a vacation to the Bahamas, they'll say, hey, going to the Bahamas next week, so excited. And so they'll post pictures of like their flight, or they'll post pictures of when they're leaving, right? Those are things that I don't do. I don't let my wife do that. She makes her kind of sad, but I don't allow her to post pictures while we're on vacation. Okay. Right. So like when we were in Hawaii for like a week, right? I was like, nope, can't post any pictures of us being in Hawaii anytime we're out of town, right? Because I'm a firearms instructor, right? And so a lot of people know where I live. It's really easy to find out where people live, right? There's property records, And there's also a lot of websites that just take these open government records and you can go to them. And a lot of them are free. A lot of them you have to sign up for. It is really easy to find out information about people, phone numbers, relatives, addresses, previous address, email addresses. And then people will post on LinkedIn, I work here, right? A lot of companies are really bad at this, right? So let's say that I work for a such and such company. I could say, okay, on my resume, let's say that I work for ABC Energy. Okay. And I say, okay, I'm an engineer for ABC Energy. And at ABC Energy, my experience is working on FortiNet firewalls. I have a lot of experience with like Cisco firepower, things like that. Right. And so as you list out your resume, people can read that and say, okay, well, that means that ABC Energy, they're using this systems. And that means that there are some new vulnerabilities that have been published. And so we can attack them that way. So being smart about what you post on social media is critical. Like I said, I don't post and I don't let my wife post when we are out of town, right? Because that's just inviting people to come break into your house. My house is covered in multiple redundant layers of security. We've got alarm systems with cellular backups, with battery backups, and then we've got secondary systems on top of that. Okay, this is the stuff that I do. This is a regular average person doesn't need to go this far, but as a security engineer, this is what I do. Okay, so being smart about what you're posting on social media. What was the other part of your question? I keep on going off on tangents. I apologize.
How do you feel with having like a smart home, and if you personally incorporate any of that?
Yeah. No. That's an excellent question. So a lot of us, we have these smart devices, right? And so number one, don't get the cheap Chinese stuff. Okay. The cheap Chinese stuff, as we mentioned before, there's bad case scenario, they have no cybersecurity. Worst case scenario, they are the threat. Okay. And that's things that we've seen before where you buy like even like cheap Chinese chargers. Sometimes they actually have malware loaded on them. So when you plug them into your computer, it'll load malware into it. Okay. None of these things are vetted by Amazon. Amazon's just a place where you can just buy really cheap stuff. Okay. Right. So people just buy stuff. It's really easy to fake Amazon reviews. And so a lot of companies will just fake their Amazon reviews, get themselves to the first page of Amazon. So when it comes to smart devices, don't buy the cheap Chinese stuff. Buy the name brand stuff. If you were to buy something like a Amazon Alexa or Google Home Nest, those are companies that are larger. They have more reputation to protect, and so they're going to spend more on that cybersecurity part of hardening their equipment. Okay. There's a lot of paranoia of, are these devices listening to me? Is my phone listening to me? Right. Why are my advertisements so well tailored to the very specific things that I do? Right. And I think there's one lawsuit right now against Google, but typically when it comes to like the smart speakers and the smart home devices, to my knowledge, security researchers have not been able to prove that they're listening to you outside of that voice command. Okay. But like I said, there is one lawsuit that's going on right now. I believe I haven't really looked into it. Interesting part is that the phone doesn't need to be listening to you. It does something worse, which is it attaches tracking cookies to your browser sessions. For example, I bought a car for my sister and we looked at the Carfax. And when we looked at the Carfax before we purchased it, we saw that the car had originally been purchased in Hawaii and then shipped to the US and then ended up in North Carolina, right? Very specific type of scenario. And then the next day, I got an advertisement for, do you need to ship a car out of Hawaii, right? That is a very, very specific type of advertisement, right? I live in North Carolina. It's on the other side of the world. And so what Facebook and Google and all the other companies do is they put tracking cookies on your browser sessions. So Facebook is actually able to track you across the internet. Okay. So those very targeted advertisements, it's not that Facebook is listening to you, it's that Facebook is following you. Okay. Right. And so because Facebook is following you, that's how they get such precise targeted advertisements. Okay. Another little fun thing. All right. You guys ever notice that when you let me see. Okay. So right? When you click on an advertisement on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then when you go to it, notice that it doesn't open up in your web browser. What it does is it opens up in, let me do this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Though naturally, the one that I click on doesn't do it. Okay. It doesn't open up in your browser, but it opens up in a sub browser inside of Facebook, right? And so you'll be browsing a company's website, but it's not on your browser. It's not in Chrome. It's not in Safari. Um, what that is Facebook is actually proxying your connection, right? We know this because we can actually create a server on the other end, and we can track where the connection is coming from. So essentially, what's happening is typically a regular interconnection is you going to Amazon.com, right? But what happens is if you click a link inside of Facebook, it'll be you, Facebook, sending that information to Amazon.com and then sending that information back to you, right? So Facebook will proxy the data so that way they can read everything that you do. Okay.
Wow.
So it's not a thing that most people realize. Most people don't understand what a proxy is. Most people don't understand what tracking cookies are, but they're not listening to you. It's worse. They're just following you everywhere you go on the internet.
That's very interesting because I was, I did recently bought a car too, and the same exact thing. I think what you really put out there is that they're following you, or if you're at a car dealership, hey,
Yeah.
there's probably a Carfax
Yeah.
thing that will pop up, and it did pop up on my Facebook one, and of course the advertising started coming out and things like that, and I wonder, I'm like, but so, I do think about. I think one of the scariest thing for me, and when I think about these stuff, is that hey, you know what? Maybe the individual of people are, people individually itself, they might be trying to track you or whatever. So, but I gotta say, I feel like it's a lot more scarier to know that such a high profile like Facebook can do that so easily.
Yeah.
Now, how many people are in the world that are using Facebook that that's information that can actually affect you, like you said, hey, you know what, we are in Hawaii, we don't want people to know. And I do the same thing as you, where I tell my wife that if no one's home or things like that, we don't post it up, because that's how people can break into homes, because they
Yeah.
know where you live and things like that. But I think about, man, with people know, if people that are using Facebook, how many information and things are being going out there, and they are being taken advantage of in this part that they're not even aware of. Now, I'm not sure if when we go through, I mean, when we create a Facebook page or things like that, we just click yes, yes, we agree to everything. Yes, yeah, okay, just open this account for me, God damn it. And so I know they have like all these privacies and things like that, but it's very interesting that when you bring it out to light and actually kind of share, hey, you know what, these privacy, they sell it to third parties, maybe that's how they're getting the information. And when you talk about you can actually search up people's name and things like that and where they live. So when I worked for the agency, we were able to do that. And not even, we were using public sites. We weren't even using private sites or things like that. It was public, and I still know the place to go to it. And I can actually look at the name, the address, the phone number, where they have lived, the past previous 10 years of address that they've lived, their history of their phone number and their email, and who they're associated with.
Actually, really quick, this is something that I do with all of my cybersecurity students, and I'll do it for your listeners as well. Go to truepeoplesearch.com, type in your name, and you're going to find yourself there. You're going to find your address there. You're going to find your phone numbers there. You're going to find, like you said, your past addresses for the past like 10 years. You're going to find your parents there. You can find your siblings there. Your neighbors are going to be on there, right?
He said true what?
Truepeoplesearch.com, right? Let me double check. Let me make sure that True People Search, yeah. TruePeopleSearch.com is free. Okay. There's a lot of them that are paid, but True People Search is popular because it's free. Okay. What you need to do is you need to request to take yourself off of there. Here's the other thing. The other thing is that TruePeopleSearch.com it's probably the most popular one because it's free. But that also means that there are dozens, if not hundreds of other websites which have collected the same exact data and they still have it. So even if you remove yourself from there, did you find yourself on there?
I found him.
She
Yep,
found,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and request get your information taken off there. You're not going to find me because I removed my information, but like I said, there are dozens of websites like this, and I have not removed myself from all of them because I have not found all of them. There's services that will delete you there. Now, here's the thing, right? Let's say that Efen, one day you say, hey, I really don't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? But there is somebody out there who cannot stand the idea that you hate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? And so what they can do is, you're familiar with swatting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you understand that what they can do is say that, hey, they can call into your local police department, says, hey, oh, Efen lives in this city at this address. So they can get the phone number of the local police department and say, hey, my name is Efen Thao. I killed all my family. I killed them all. I stabbed them all to death. And if you come here, I will shoot you too. Right.
Wow.
The whole SWAT team's going to arrive and they're going to stand out there. Right. And if you step out that door, right, and you get that one skittish cop, they will all light you up. And we know this because this has happened dozens of times. Okay.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. Okay. Swatting is a big, big thing, which is why it's recommended that, hey, all the big social media people, all the big people who play a lot of video games online and they stream it, what they do is they call into the local police department. They're like, hey, I'm a well-known internet person. Do not send a SWAT team to my house. If you get a call that I killed my family or whatever, don't send a SWAT team. Just come call me first, knock on the door nicely, and I will come answer it. All right. Because this is such a well-known thing. That's why it's important to scrub your information from the internet.
Wow, that's scary. I didn't know that people do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Seems like everybody knows where I used to live now. No.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, we'll definitely take off these information as soon as possible.
That's a useful tip. We're gonna have to do that.
But you're all right though. There are more sites out there. And sometimes it's so hard to combat to all those sites because, again, these information are just going out. I don't know how many, maybe thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands sites are like this. And, that's why we always wonder, how do people profit in this? What are they selling the information? What are they getting out of it? Because the information here, I mean, you can receive the information, but you have to do something with it to receive the money. What do you think they do with it?
The websites?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with those websites, I mean, what's the profit, I guess, of knowing, hey, you know what, Efen lives here, this is his history, and who this is. What is the profit? Is it like leading? Is it like sales leads?
It's a service, right? So as you already know, right? If you're not paying for it, then you're the product, right? That's the whole idea behind social media. If you're not paying for it, that's because you're the product. Now, when it comes to things like in websites that collect your information, so all that information is public information, right? Because you can go onto property records for your county, right? And I could type in your name and I could see what taxes you owe, where you currently live, right? And what homes you have registered to, right? That's publicly available information. And so what these websites do is they just trawl the internet and they just collect all this information and then they collect it and they aggregate it, right? And so like I said, truepeoplesearch.com it's probably one of the most popular because it's free, meaning that the rest of them you have to pay for that. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have to pay for those services. So why True People Search is popular? Because it's free. But what they can also do is they can post advertisements on that because they're the most popular, because they're free. They're making less money, but they're at the top of the Google search results. Search engine optimization being that first link on the Google. That's important, right? And so they're popular. They're first hit on Google. They can advertise more, make a little bit more revenue there. You can also sell services there. So like if you go to True People Search, you can say, hey, do a background check on Efen Thao, see what criminal record he has. And so a lot of times they'll put fake things. They'll say, oh, Efen, he has 2 misdemeanor charges and one felony, and he has like 10 speeding tickets, right? And so they'll just post fake stuff. And they said, do you want to see what it is? You got to pay us $24.99 to find out.
Yeah.
So that's very common.
Wow. Yeah,
That's crazy.
well, I kind of want to take a shift from the on this part and kind of I'm very interested in your thought on this because there was a saying not too long ago that with all the war going on, earlier I talked about the war going back and forth, things like that. They say, hey, you know what? It's not a physical war, but it's a silent war. And when they say it's a silent war, I'm not sure if you ever heard that phrase before, but when they say it's a silent war, there's a war going on. You're just not noticing it because it isn't a physical war, but it's a war between information. And when we look at, and again, I'm not sure if you were following that Russia and Ukraine have thing going on. What do you think of that? What kind of information say that? I know that they have super duper sensitive information, but when you take that and you said, okay, well, we can do something with a country, why is it that, you think about, oh, we have the best technology, the best stuff, but why is it so important for them to know the information? What are they trying to get out of?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, um, if you want to learn like real world how that works, one of the things to learn about is Stuxnet, Stux net. Okay, and essentially the Iranians, they were trying to refine uranium, um, but Israel and the United States had a vested interest that the Iranians did not refine uranium, right? And so the Iranians, they had a facility, okay, and so the U.S. and Israel, they couldn't just go outright and bomb it. And so they were trying to figure out, how do we stop the Iranians from enriching uranium at this? They know where the facility is, but the facility does not have internet access. We call that air gapping, right? How do you perform a cyber attack on something that is air gapped, that's not connected to the internet? Okay. So what they did was they crafted a very, very secret computer virus. Okay. And they took the computer virus, they loaded it onto uh, USB flash drives, right? Thumb drives. And we don't know where exactly they scattered it, but they just kind of scattered it around, right? So they scattered it around, and eventually one of them got into the facility, right? And it had a very specific purpose. Its purpose was to hide, okay? It was to hide and to be very silent. And it had one specific job. And that one specific job is that the centrifuges that would enrich the uranium, its job was to throw it off balance, that the whole centrifuge eventually broke itself. Okay. But very slowly, very subtly. Right. So the Iranians trying to figure out, why are all our centrifuges slowly breaking? Right. These are like they're good Russian models. Right. The Russians have been enriching uranium for long, long time. Okay. And so um according to the story, the Israelis, they kind of pushed the virus a little bit too far, and they made it a little bit too aggressive, and so it started. So random people picked these things up and they plugged into their computers. Their computers were infected with the virus, but the virus, all it does is it stays quiet until it detects that it's able to talk to a uranium enrichment machine, right? Which, unless you're Iran or Russia or the US, you don't have one of these. Okay, and that's what it was supposed to do. It's supposed to be very quiet. But the Israelis, they were very aggressive with it, and so the behavior they gave to it is that you infect a machine and then you infect all the other computers on the network, right? And then you just spread, you spread, you spread, you spread. Okay. The US didn't want to do this because they knew that it was going to get out and somebody was going to find it eventually. But the Israelis were aggressive and they put that in there. And eventually, McAfee, the antivirus company, they found it. Okay. There was a smaller company that found it first, but McAfee, they eventually got ahead of it. I could be saying that wrong, but one of the big companies, they found it, right? And so they are breaking it down. So they're trying to figure out, what is this virus? And it's spreading so rapidly, but it's not doing anything. It's just sitting quietly, right? And so eventually they were able to talk to some engineers at Siemens. And so Siemens, they looked at it and they said, this is attacking a very specific type of machine controller. And they realized that it's attacking uranium enrichment controllers, right?
Wow.
And I realized that this this type of virus was so advanced and so specific, the only ones who could have made it is Israel and the United States. And so that's how the U.S. and Israel they severely crippled an uranium enrichment facility that was not connected to the internet, right? And it's called Stuxnet, Stuxnet, right?
Wow.
And so, sorry, I've got so many stories. And
Oh,
so essentially, going back to Russia and Ukraine right now, cybersecurity is the first line of defense. Okay. And what we mean by that is that if we were to go into a total World War III scenario, right, first thing that either country is going to do is you attack the infrastructure. Okay. When I was working for that energy company, that we would get briefings from Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. Okay. And that's what they would tell us is that if we were to get attacked by China or Russia or Iran or North Korea, they would attack our infrastructure first. Because if you shut off the power, right, you shut off the power to the hospitals, to police departments, to fire departments. There's no more food. All the refrigeration is gone, right? All the refineries for fuel, they're shutting down, right? That's why you attack the power grid first. That is the first thing that you attack. You take down the power grid. Okay. And so we've known that for a long time, and that's what we knew what was going to happen in Ukraine. Okay, we knew Russia was going to attack Ukraine, and so what the U.S. did is the U.S. sent a bunch of cybersecurity experts from top companies. Okay, so all these top cybersecurity engineers and experts from the U.S. they went to Ukraine and they hardened Ukraine's infrastructure. Okay, okay. Another step back. The reason we know that if you shut down the power, like the whole place shuts down is because of the New York blackouts. Okay. So during the New York blackouts, right, New York lost power for a while and it was complete anarchy. Okay. Complete anarchy. People rioting and looting and there was murders in the street, right? It was complete chaos. And so we know that if you shut off the power, that's what happens. Okay. And so the US sent a bunch of these experts over to Ukraine. And so they actually did a really good job of hardening Ukraine's infrastructure. So when Russia, they finally did their full invasion, they were trying to attack Ukraine's infrastructure, and they weren't very successful because Ukraine had been spending a lot of times hardening it. Okay, now what started happening though is that slowly the Russians started breaking into the systems, and they couldn't figure out why. And then they started realizing that as the Russians were advancing, the first thing that they did was once they started getting a foothold in an area, they rushed to the power plants. You rush to the power plants and then you get inside of the network of the power plants, right? That's how the Russians were getting in, is that they couldn't attack from the outside. So they literally had to rush to the power plants and then get into the networks. Once they're inside the networks, they could start shutting down more systems. Okay. So what the Ukrainians eventually had to do is that anytime they lost a territory that had a power plant in it, you cut the power plant off from the network. So it's very, very interesting stuff. U.S. infrastructure, it's the energy grid. It's regulated under NERC NERC standards, North American Energy Reliability Corporation. Okay, and they oversee the standards for keeping the grid up. It's all really cool stuff.
So you talk about the grid and about the power. I used to live in the state of Alaska, and so up there they have a huge Air Force base, and it's Air Force base. It's a Marine. There's Army up there, of course, too, and up there. I spoke to an engineer and he said, so in the state of Alaska, they have, of course, their energy source from one spot, and they're sharing energy. I might be wrong about this, but if he said it like this, where they're sharing their energy with the whole state, where everybody's getting their energy. But if say that the energy or the the lights and everything just kind of shuts off in the state of Alaska, the Air Force base there they have their own generator that can generate as basically the whole island or the whole place of anchorage, and it would never go out. So I thought that was very interesting if something were like that to happen. And again, of course, they probably have the best some of the best technology in there that are keeping everything alive and keep going. But when you brought that up, I'm like, man, you know what? To hold something like that powerful, to bring up if something like that were to happen. So that's why when I say, oh man, the Russian war, and of course, now we got the Israel and the
Palestine. Yeah.
Palestinian war. And so I mean the Israel war, that's a whole different story of ball game in that area. But now I think as we get down, I think cybersecurity is being more and more important. I think about the future of our kids, of about the cybersecurity, and just think about how long can they protect themselves. More kids are getting into the TikToks
Yeah,
and those
social
kind of things,
media.
social media. They're putting all their information out there. They're even talking about where they live, how they live, and things like that, how many people are here and things.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that no matter what you do, it comes down to, of course, the parents and the individual themselves to take matters into their own hand, and restricting some areas in their life of, okay, well, not everything is safe. After you talked about how cybersecurity really really work in those areas, and if it can really crack down on, say, a state like Russia, Ukrainian, or hacking to corporations and those things, I think no matter what, if like somebody said, if the door, you can lock the door, but if somebody really really wants to get in, they will get in no matter what. But it all depends on if there's a barrel on the other side, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Christian, I want to hear your view because AI is a really big topic right now, and I feel like some people they're really for it, other they are afraid of it. But with everything I want to hear your personal view on AI. Do you feel like it's something that we should be afraid of, or is it something that will enhance our quality of life?
Yeah, yeah, and with AI, it's a lot of people don't like it, but it's here, it's now, and it's only going to get bigger. Um, that's pretty much just the way technology goes. Even if, say, the U.S. were to ban the development of AI, it doesn't matter. China's going to develop it more. Russia's going to work on developing it. Everybody's rushing to develop it now. One of the things is that when it comes to technology, the United States is a huge powerhouse, right? Um, a lot of people used to think that Japan was where all the technology was, but nowadays there's not really a lot of innovative tech coming out of Japan. Um, if you kind of think of like all the innovations of, say, companies, all the big tech companies like Google, Apple, like Tesla. These are all American companies, okay? And so all these developments are coming out of the U.S. And so we're the leaders in that technology, right? And so it also makes sense that we're going to be the leaders in the AI space because we have the skilled people, we have the engineers, we also have um, a lot of those resources, right? Because you need a lot of this hardware, all of this equipment to get all that stuff working. Okay, and that also comes down to why, if and eventually if China does attack Taiwan, the U.S. has a huge vested interest in defending Taiwan. Not that Taiwan is anything particularly special, but that much of our technology manufacturing capability comes from Taiwan. Okay, and that's one of the leading reasons that the U.S. would jump in, get into war with China to save Taiwan, because we do not want China to own that capability to make these very specialized processors, computer processors. Um, tell me your question again.
I wanted to know your personal opinion on AI.
Okay.
If it's like a threat or if it's something that you feel will be something to enhance our quality of life.
Okay. Yeah. So getting back to AI, sorry, I have so many fun stories,
No, we
man.
love your stories.
Okay, great. As long as I'm not boring you. Yeah. So you're not going to be able to stop the development of AI because AI can do really cool things. when I was younger, right, and I was starting to learn more about computers and programming and coding, I was like, why are people so afraid of AI, like Terminator scenario where
Right.
the computer's coming to kill us all? I was like, computers are very simple. You tell it what to do, and the computer does exactly, specifically what you tell it to do, right? And if you do not tell it to do the right thing, it's going to do exactly to the letter exactly what you tell it to do. Okay. Um, but as AI started to come around, the interesting thing is that how do you define AI, right? How do you define artificial intelligence? A lot of times you'll see people say AI slash ML, artificial intelligence slash machine learning, because we're not at true AI just yet. Okay. True AI would be an actual individually thinking conscious thing. Okay. A person, but robotic using computer hardware. Okay. Able to form their own thoughts and their own opinions, but just using computer hardware. Okay. We're not at that level yet. Currently, what you're seeing is machine learning. Okay. So you guys have probably seen these really interesting talks people have been able to do talking to like chat gpt, right, these
Mhm.
conversations they're able to have, right? Like you can tell chat gpt, can you write me like a Dr. Seuss story, but make it using like rap lyrics like Dr. Dre, right? And it can do things like that. Yeah, it can
Right.
totally do things like that, right? And it's so cool what it can do. Now, when it comes to what AI is and isn't, so number one, it's not truly AI. Okay. We might get there. We don't really know. And even if we were to get there, we're not really sure how to define that yet. Okay. Um, is should we be afraid of AI? I don't know. I think we need to be cautious of AI, um, because in its current state, it's not truly self-conscious yet. Could it be? I don't know. Maybe. But it's more in the machine learning stage. Okay. So when you see AI being able to, write stories or create pictures and stuff, pretty much what it's doing is it's working like a parrot. Okay. So a parrot, what it'll do is it'll take in all these words and it can repeat them. Right. And does a parrot really know what it's saying? Maybe some parrots do, but a lot of times it's just kind of repeating things. And so that's what our current state of AI is. We're more in the machine learning stage where you can take AI and you can feed it hundreds of thousands of pictures of like Taylor Swift, right? And you can ask to say, draw a picture for me of Taylor Swift in a rowboat or eating a piece of cake, right? And it can do stuff like that because it just has 10,000 references of what people eating cake looks like and what Taylor Swift looks like, and it can combine the two, right? I've got a fun game for you guys that we can do in a minute. Um, that's the current state. Um, now, when I talk about should we be afraid of AI, um, are we going to be in like a Terminator Skynet scenario where AI comes to kill us all and it launches all the nukes? I used to think that would never happen, but as I can kind of see where the development is going, that that may become a possibility in the future, um, where that machine has a better understanding of how these kind of systems work, right? And then somebody might be dumb enough to give it enough autonomy that it could do stuff like that. Like, for example, so in the earlier stages of ChatGPT, right? Um, they were trying to see if ChatGPT could um, get past the captcha, right? You guys seen the captcha, like click all the tiles of the bus, right? Or click all the tiles of the crosswalk, right? So it couldn't do this, right? But they gave ChatGPT, I believe it's ChatGPT. It might have been another language model, but they gave it access to a PayPal wallet. And so what it did is that it took that PayPal wallet and it went to a website called Fiverr, where you can pay people like $5 or $10 to do small tasks for you. And what it did was it went to that website and it said, "Hi, I need somebody's help to get past this captcha because I can't see that well." Right. And so what it did is it talked to somebody and it was able to pay them money. And so the person asked, "Well, why do you need help with this? This is pretty simple." And then the researchers, they could see that the AI model, it realized that I can't just tell you I'm an AI. I have to come up with an excuse. And the excuse it came up with is that I can't see that well. And so it paid that person money to get past the CAPTCHA. And that is freaky. I did not know it could do stuff like this. Okay. So it's already figuring ways around things in kind of a
Right.
smart way. Yeah, that's freaky.
That's freaky.
So with these, that's an interesting story. That's interesting. I love hearing these stories because sometimes most people said, "Oh, you know what? It's probably a conspiracy," but you never know until it's been done, and then it doesn't. It's not a conspiracy story anymore.
Right.
With the AI, like we were talking about, do you think, like with human capability of us being able to think, have you ever heard that story of most people said, "Oh, you know what? We only think 10% of our brain and or 5% of our brain, and whoever's using 10% are the smartest or the it's not it's of course it's not that way, but it's only 5% of part of our brain that we're using, or it's only a part of our brain that we're really focusing on in that part." But with knowing that human minds, we can only think for so long and so far. It's a vehicle. And as much as we use it, we'll eventually come to that point of knowing, okay, well, that's as far as I can go. Do you think AI is the key way to take us to the next level of saying there is more to it? That's why most people are so interested in advancing this AI thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think the possibility with AI is that it will allow us to do more and allow us to be more productive, allow us to accomplish more in a shorter amount of time, right? If you can think about like the invention of the calculator, a lot of people are upset by the invention of the calculator, saying, "Why do you need a calculator for? You can just sit down and do the math," right? A lot of people are upset by the invention of or the development of more affordable cars. They're like, "Why would you want an affordable car? Just use a horse," right? And same thing with electric vehicles now. We don't have the infrastructure for electric vehicles. They're easy to make fun of, but electric vehicles they're much more efficient, and we're going to come out with better technology and infrastructure for them. So what AI will allow us to do is it allows us to be more productive, right? It can take tasks like basic stuff like spreadsheets, for example, right? So there are a lot of cases where, somebody has to take these spreadsheets and they have to move all the data and organize all the data and stuff. And AI, it can do that instantly, very quickly. People who can, a lot of these menial tasks, they can be done very quickly by AI. Then you've got artists who are very afraid of, what if AI writes the next big hit movie? And then what if AI, it steals my art style and it, draws pictures of famous people in my art style, right? And the it's AI is not going anywhere. It's just going to improve in its quality. It's still very much in its infancy right now. Okay, this is very much like the baby steps of AI, and it's really only going to get more powerful from here.
Did you feel like our kids will suffer from AI because it's so advanced that they are not going to be able to they're not going to basically they're not going to think for themselves, and they're
Right.
going to be dependent on these AI and these it's because I mean, I'll tell you this. There are state tests that people typically take whenever they need to get certified or things like that. Wouldn't it be a lot easier if there's a state test going on and I'm able to just look them all up and information in there because so many informations are in there, and I don't really have to try to be as smart as that to pass this test that my father took, and it took him 30 days to test to read books and to learn this stuff. So wouldn't that affect how individual is going to grow in the future?
That's a great question. If you weren't aware of this, but they tested the AI models by having them take the bar exam, right? The exam to become a lawyer. AI can already pass the bar exam. Okay. And that's interesting because the bar exam, you have to go through all the scenarios and you have to answer different scenarios. It's not select A, B, or C. It's this person does this thing. How does that work out? And you have to go in depth and explain it. And AI can already pass that. Okay. It's hard to say exactly what that's going to do for us in the future, but as technology advances, the way we interact with it changes. Okay. For example, back in the day, before you had refrigeration technology, before that was widespread and affordable, you would have a guy come to your house and he would deliver blocks of ice, right? You'd have an ice box, right? And so you every day you take your block of ice, you put it in your ice box, and that's how you would keep your food cold. Is a guy comes by and he drops off a block of ice, the Iceman, right? But nobody complains that he's gone. Nobody complains that he lost his job, right? It's been a long time since anybody has complained that, hey, we don't need a guy to deliver ice anymore. Nobody wants him back, right? That's really annoying, right? What I see happening most likely is that things are going to change. Things are going to be different. Okay, the way we interact with things is going to be different. For example, you were talking about, if you could easily cheat using AI, well, then we're going to just teach our students with tests that you can't just have an AI write out the answers for you. Okay, like a paper test, something like that. Okay, so our methods of interacting with these things, counteracting these things, that's going to change, right? And like I talked before about, like the invention of the calculator, making it affordable, making it pocket size, right? That hasn't changed the way that we teach math. We still teach math the same way, but we interact with math a little bit differently. Even though we all have smartphones, right, and we can all do math very very quickly, math is still that core concept that we need to learn. So the way our kids are going to interact with it, it's hard to say. It's hard to say how they're going to interact with it because, like I said, AI is still in its baby steps. It's hard to say what AI is going to look like in 2 years, let alone 10 years, because it's so wild what it can do right now. I can't imagine what it's going to do in a couple of years from now.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time, and I mean, I think about even us being in our, in our 30s or 40s, just the times changed so quick. When we talk about 20 years from now on, it's gonna go by so quick. I mean, our next podcast, you will have hair and I will be bald. you know so but no, I appreciate with all the information that you've given us. There's so much, and I think, like, if we didn't have a time crunch, I can probably go with you all day long with this and just kind of pick your brain on these things. But the nice thing is to know that we have people like you providing education out there for individuals, doing classes for individuals that are interested in getting into these kind of programs of cybersecurity, and in knowing how to combat against the unknown of what might, something new might come out. Because again, there's another smarter person out there in the world that is creating something to come after maybe you, or maybe somebody in a higher up, or maybe somebody that you are working for. And so I think as we, get down, I want to say maybe I don't think that AI would be super advanced in the next 5 years. Don't take me for it, but I think in the next like 10 to 15 years, I think it'll be at that point where that it gets to that point where it's basically thinking for us. I mean, of course, the computer's thinking for us already. ChatGPT, if I wanted to ask Christian questions any day, I probably put it down there. Or if I wanted to talk to him, I probably, just put it down there, highlight it, and send it to him. But I think down the line, I feel for not our generation, but our kids' generation, knowing that they're eventually going to learn about this stuff and get to have access to computers and things like that, and they're gonna say, hey, you know what, I don't really need to know this stuff. Like when we were young, we were saying, you know what, I don't really need, am I going to really use calculus when I am done with school? But most people say, oh, well, why not just take it? but yeah, no, and appreciate. But I think you said you wanted to do the test.
So I've got a couple images. So nope. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at these images. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to guess: is this a computer generated image, or did a human make this? Right? Did a human make this? Did the human either draw this, or a human take a photo of this and then touch it up in Photoshop?
I think it
guess.
was Photoshop. I think that lady in the middle is Photoshop.
I'm gonna
Because
say it's human. I think it's an original photo.
Okay. All right. Good guess.
can I give you the reason why I think that?
Yeah, yeah, tell me.
The reason why I think that is because I see two brothers trying to
Mhm.
talk to each other when somebody's in the middle trying to, interrupt the conversation. It doesn't make sense.
Right. It looks very natural. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at this next one. Okay. How about this one? Computer generated or did a human make this?
Hmm. I'm
I
gonna say computer generated.
I think computer generated too as well.
Okay. Very good guess. What do you guys think so? It's a little bit too fantastic, right?
Yeah, too smooth.
Actually, being smooth, that's typically a hallmark of AI generated images. Um, it has it has this soft filter to them. Okay. How about this one?
I'm gonna say computer generated.
I'm gonna say this is a picture.
Did a human make the picture or did a computer make the picture?
I think a human.
I think computer.
Okay. Yo, why do you think a computer made this?
It's like you say, it looks too soft. It's like really filtered.
Ah, okay. What do you think, Ethan?
I think I think a person did it. Are you talking about did a person take a picture of it or did a person
The
make it?
whole image. The whole image.
I
Yeah.
think a person did it. I don't think it's
Okay.
AI.
All right. Some good guesses. Let's take a look at this one.
Oh, this has to be AI.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Why do you
that's
guys think so?
because Taylor would never kiss Kanye with the history that they have.
I mean, I don't see their lips touching, and in the background, it doesn't seem like a authentic background at all. It seems like we're at a. It looks like they're about it's like a boxing fight or something like that.
Ah, okay. Okay. Good takes. Good takes. All right. How about this one?
I'm gonna say computer.
I'm gonna say a person did this. I'm gonna say a person did this.
Why do you guys think of that?
It looks like almost like drawn.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't look like somebody put it together, I feel like.
No, I feel like a person put this together. I feel like this is more of a like a like a stadium like um some of her pictures from other places. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this could be like a promotional image for like a movie or
Yeah.
maybe a fun album cover. Okay. All right. How about this one?
This has got to be this is probably AI generated. I mean,
This is an older photo.
yeah, this is probably This is has to be 100% AI generated. I mean, look at if you've seen I forgot what's her name?
Amber Heard,
Mhm.
Amber
right?
Heard. If you've
I think
seen
it's
Amber
Amber.
Heard on the trial, this doesn't look like
Yeah, it
how it
doesn't really
is.
look like her.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
it
Mhm.
honestly, I would say the two faces almost look similar,
Hmm.
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah.
and Amber Heard's body ain't like that. Right? Looks too unnatural.
Ah, good call. Good call. How about this one? This is for Disney's new Tarzan movie they got coming out.
Yeah, I'm gonna say maybe a person did that.
Maybe a person did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We'll do.
And then so I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Matrix movies, it was actually supposed to, they were actually trying to get Tom Cruise to star in them. I forgot the reason why, but he wasn't able to. So they got Keanu Reeves instead. So this is one of the test images with Tom Cruise when they were testing their costume design and the overall feel for the movie.
I think I think it's AI made. It has to
Yeah,
be AI
I feel
made.
like it's AI made.
Why do you guys think that?
I think if Tom Cruise was going to do it, an audition like this, then he would have done it already and got the part. I don't think he would have backed out from it.
And I don't think anyone would go to the lengths of just creating this as like a test shot. It'll be too time consuming.
Gotcha. All right. Good thoughts. Let me see. I think I've got two more.
I mean, it's definitely fake, but but I think, of course, I think a person did this though. I don't think it's AI generated.
Yeah,
maybe like a Photoshop.
Yeah, maybe Photoshop. The smirks look kind of really big. I think AI would have done a better job.
All right, last one.
No, this is a person. This is probably a photo. It's probably real.
Yeah, I'm gonna say person.
Yeah, I think a person just took a photo.
Okay. I think that was my last one. Oh, this is my last one.
Oh, this is AI generated.
Yeah, I'm gonna say AI.
It is too smooth.
Too smooth?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right. So let's go back. All right. The answer is they're all AI generated. Okay.
Oh,
okay.
So these are all AI generated. And the thing is, like a photo like this, you were talking about how it seems in the moment, right? It doesn't seem like it's posed. It seems like these two guys are talking, right? Maybe this is like Halloween, and so she's dressed up. But this is AI generated. Now, it used to be that an easy way to tell is that the fingers were weird, but these fingers look okay, right? Yeah, because AI is getting better. The fingers look okay. AI generated images have this dream-like quality to them, meaning that when you're in that dream and at first glance everything seems normal, the more you think about it, the more you inspect it, the more things fall apart, right? So when we kind of look at this, right, one of the things that we can pay attention to is we can look at his tattoos. Sometimes people will have tattoos of things that are important to them that only make sense to them, but sometimes tattoos, like, they don't really make sense. Okay. And the other times there's not really any giveaways. Okay. There's not really a lot of dead giveaways. This is an AI generated image. This one's AI generated. With some of the takeaways is that this plane is a little bit too small to be holding a horse. It has that smoothness to it. And it doesn't make sense. And that's one of the things that we can kind of think about. Maybe it's a staged photo, like for like a fun album cover. A lot of times photographers they'll think of something fun. But if we kind of break it down, how would you get a horse to jump in a small contained space like that? That'd be way too dangerous and way too hard to do. This one's AI generated. As we kind of look at it, things kind of fall apart. Like it especially with religious iconography, if you take the time to kind of research, what exactly that could be, it doesn't really make sense. The other thing is that sometimes I struggle trying to pick out the parts of the image that are AI generated, but a lot of times the background photos, they don't really make sense. Like some of these back here that are harder to see, they don't really make sense. It's got that dreamlike quality. This one we know is fake because this would be major news if it happened, right? And so that's another context clue that we can use to determine if something's AI generated, right? We can think of the context. This would be massive news if this happened, okay? The other thing is that you'll notice that her fingers, they turn very African American, right? And also, if this happened, why would everybody not be staring at them, right? This is hard to tell if it's AI generated, right? This could be, like I said, a fun album cover. There's not really a lot of giveaways. It's got that softness, but it could be very much like a Photoshop or Instagram kind of filtery feel. This one of the things that you can tell it's fake is that AI is not very good at guns yet. What kind of gun is he holding? That doesn't make sense. You notice his hand kind of like morphs a little bit back here. That's a giveaway. Efen was talking about that's not Amber Heard's body shape. And yeah, that's another thing. What AI tends to do is AI machine learning is trained on publicly available images. And so they trained it on Instagram. Okay. And so typically whenever there's a lady in a photo, she gets turned into an Instagram model. Okay. And so boobs get bigger, waist gets skinnier. gets the makeup, right? And so that doesn't make sense. Then that's what AI was trained on. So that's why whenever you look at AI generated images, ladies turn into Instagram models. This one's AI generated as well, right? How can you tell? It's really hard. It's really hard to tell. This looks like it could legitimately be a promo for a film, but we could research it. We could see, are there actual promo images of Will Smith in the Tarzan movie coming up? And you would find out, no, there aren't. So we can't source this back to an original source. That would be a clue that that's AI generated. Same thing with this. Tom Cruise he's a little bit too old. He would be much younger by the time that the first Matrix came out. That's a clue that this is fake. Also, this gun, that's not what guns look like. So that's another clue. But if it's a sci-fi movie, it could be a sci-fi gun. Especially in the political space. That's something that we have to be careful about, right? You can take politicians, you can put them in any type of situations that you want, right? A giveaway here is that hands are a little bit off, and then this railing back here, it kind of doesn't line up. That's another clue. His shadows down here, don't match up either. And you were talking about how his mouth, his mouth looks a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And then this one's AI generated, but at first glance, I mean, it looks pretty normal. It doesn't look like there's anything particularly weird about it, but
it looks the usual self.
But the more you stare at it, like, why is this shirt rack way down that low, right? Maybe there's like a lower floor and he's at a slightly higher floor, right? There's just other things, like things in here. The closer you look at it, the more they kind of don't make sense. So it's getting harder and harder to tell what's real and what's fake. And funny story, I follow a lot of AI accounts in my social media, and every time I look at something, it's getting harder for me to tell, did my friends share this, or is this an AI generated thing? Even if it's like a fun statue, I have a hard time telling if it's real or if it's fake. So just something interesting for you guys to think about. Our reality is changing because our ability to manipulate the digital world is changing. So these are things to be aware of.
Wow, that's very informative, man. It kind of brings out the light of seeing what AI really truly can do. But it's been amazing having you here, teaching us about the cybersecurity and about AI, your thoughts on it. And I really appreciate you giving these. I think more and more people should need these, should have these information. Again, with if anybody that wants to reach out to Christian, I'll have all your information down on our info there. And again, as we continue this cyber security and AI world and continue evolving, I think maybe put something out of how to really secure yourself in that area, because I think eventually we're all going to have to deal with it in hard times. So anything that makes it easy always comes hard somewhere around the line. But again, Christian, thank you very much with everything and giving us that game of chess, man. Everything was AI at the end. So, but again, want to reach out to Christian, then we'll put your info on the bottom.
Okay. Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much.